There was a moment in the ancient world when a young man stood before a kingdom he had not yet learned to carry. The weight of a throne pressed down on shoulders that the world assumed were ready simply because he had been chosen. The people around him celebrated. The ceremonies were complete. The transfer of power had been witnessed by thousands. But in the quiet of his own heart, in the place where no ceremony could reach, he felt something the crowd could not see. He felt the magnitude of what had been placed upon him. He felt the distance between who he currently was and who he was being called to become. And in that silence, instead of pretending the weight was not real, instead of performing confidence he had not yet earned, he did something that most people in his position would never dare to do. He went to God and he asked, not for victory, not for wealth, not for the defeat of his enemies, but for the wisdom to carry what he had been given without destroying it. That single moment of honest surrender before the throne of heaven changed everything that followed. And if you are hearing these words right now, something in your spirit already knows that moment belongs to you too. You did not arrive here by scrolling. You did not find this message because the algorithm made a lucky guess about your preferences. Something older than technology, something wiser than any system built by human hands, pressed pause on everything else happening in your life and placed these words directly in front of you. That is not a small thing. That is not coincidence dressed up in spiritual language. That is the fingerprint of a God who sees you specifically, who knows your name, who has been tracking every step of your journey, even when you were too exhausted to track it yourself. The young king in that ancient story did not know everything that was coming. He did not have a map of the years ahead. He did not receive a vision that showed him the full picture of his destiny. What he received was presence. And presence was enough to move him forward into everything that was written for him. Presence is what you are receiving right now. Because here is what the world does not tell you about being chosen. It does not feel like a celebration every day. It does not feel like the cinematic version of destiny that you imagined. Most of the time, being chosen feels like carrying something heavy in a room full of people who are carrying nothing at all and being expected to smile while you do it. It feels like knowing something is being built inside you that is not finished yet, and having to live in the tension between who you are today and who you are becoming. It feels like watching doors close on paths you were certain were yours, only to stand in a corridor that seems to lead nowhere, wondering if you misread the signs. It feels like the silence between the promise and the fulfillment, which is the hardest kind of silence there is, because it requires you to trust what you cannot yet see, taste, or touch. And that is exactly where you are right now. Not lost, not forgotten, not disqualified. You are in the corridor. And the corridor is not the end of your story. It is the preparation for the next chapter. There is a particular kind of person who ends up in these spaces, in these quiet, searching moments where something inside will not let them settle for a version of life that does not match what they feel burning in their chest. That person is not ordinary in the way the world uses that word. That person has always known, even before they had the language to explain it, that they were built for something more than what they could see in front of them. They have carried a sense of calling that does not go away no matter how many times life tries to silence it. They have been misunderstood by people who were supposed to understand them. They have been underestimated by rooms that should have recognized them. They have watched people with far less heart and far less depth move ahead in ways that made no visible sense. And yet something in them refused to quit. Something in them kept showing up. Something in them kept believing, even when belief felt like the most unreasonable thing. the world. That person is you. That has always been you. And heaven has not missed a single moment of it. Not the sleepless nights when you laid in the dark and wondered if any of it was real. Not the tears you cried in places where no one could see you because you had to be strong everywhere else. Not the prayers that felt like they were hitting a ceiling and bouncing back unchanged. Not the moments when you looked at your life and felt the gap between where you are and where you believed you were going, and felt the weight of that gap more heavily than you could put into words. Heaven was present in every single one of those moments. Heaven was not watching from a distance, unmoved by your struggle. Heaven was inside the struggle with you, working through every layer of delay, every experience of loss, every season of silence, to produce something in you that cannot be manufactured any other way. The process you have been walking through is not punishment. It is preparation. And you are closer to the completion of that preparation than you have ever been. The ancient young king understood this at a level that went beyond intellectual knowledge. When he stood before God in that early season of his reign and made his request, he was not simply asking for a tool to use in managing a kingdom. He was acknowledging that the assignment was larger than his natural capacity, and that he needed something from beyond himself to fulfill what he had been given. That acknowledgement was an act of extraordinary spiritual intelligence. Most people in positions of power choose to project capability they do not have rather than confess the need they do. Most people would rather perform strength than receive wisdom. But this young man chose differently, and that choice became the foundation of everything that was built through his life. Your willingness to sit here right now, to open your heart to a word that is speaking directly to your season, is your version of that same choice. You are not pretending to have it all together. You are not performing. You are receiving. And receiving is the most powerful posture you can carry as a chosen one. 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 9. Give your servant, therefore, an understanding heart to judge your people, that I may discern between good and evil. For who is able to judge this, your so great a people? That prayer is thousands of years old, and it is sitting inside your chest right now as if it were written this morning. Because the thing that was being asked for in that moment, the ability to discern, the ability to navigate complexity with clarity, the ability to carry a calling without being crushed by the weight of it, is the exact thing that you are being positioned to receive in this season. Not someday, not after you have figured everything out. Right now, in the middle of the unfinished places, in the middle of questions that do not yet have answers. The anointing does not wait for everything to be perfect before it arrives. It meets you in the corridor. It meets you in the gap. It meets you exactly where you are and begins working from there. You are a chosen one. You have always been a chosen one. And this message found you today because June 12 and 13 are not just dates on a calendar. They are markers. They are thresholds. They are moments that heaven has circled in a plan that was written with your name attached to it. Something is shifting in the realm of the spirit on those days that will have a direct and visible impact on the physical reality of chosen ones who are positioned and prepared to receive it. You do not need to manufacture the readiness. You do not need to perform the alignment. What you need to do is exactly what that ancient young king did. Stand before the source of your calling with an open heart and say, I am here. I am willing. I am ready to carry what you have placed in my hands. And right now, as a declaration, as an act of alignment, as a prophetic acknowledgement that you recognize this moment and you are choosing to step into it, I want you to type 888 in the comments below, not as a superstition, not as a ritual, but as a statement from your spirit to the atmosphere around you that you see what is coming, that you choose it, that you are not going to let this threshold pass without marking it with intention. 888. Let it go into the comments section as your declaration that you belong to what God is doing in this hour. Because you do, you have always belonged to it. And now the moment is arriving that will make that belonging visible in ways you have been praying to see for longer than you can remember. What you are carrying right now is not a burden that arrived by accident. It is a weight that was assigned. And there is a difference between a burden that crushes you and a weight that is shaping you, even when they feel identical from the inside. The young king from the previous chapter of this message made his request in the quiet of a sacred moment, and heaven answered with something that went far beyond the walls of his palace. But now the story turns. Now the word moves to a different kind of chosen one. Not a king, not someone raised in the courts of power, not someone trained in the art of leadership or groomed for greatness from childhood. This chosen one was hiding. This chosen one was afraid. This chosen one looked at his own life and saw every reason why the calling could not possibly be meant for him. And yet the angel of the Lord came and sat under the oak tree where he was working and said something that shattered every excuse he had ever built around himself. The angel said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." His name was Gideon. And before you dismiss that name as something that belongs only to ancient history, before you place his story safely behind the glass of a museum where it cannot touch you, I need you to understand something. Gideon's story is your story. The specific details are different. The geography is different. The century is different. But the internal architecture of what he was living through is identical to what you are navigating right now. He was from the weakest clan in his tribe. He said so himself. He was the least significant member of the least significant family in a people who were already living under oppression. When the angel found him, he was not standing on a mountain receiving a vision. He was hiding in a winepress, threshing wheat in a place designed for something else entirely, because he was afraid of what would happen if the enemy saw what he had. He was surviving. He was managing. He was doing the best he could with what he had in a season that felt completely defined by limitation and fear. And into that exact moment, in that specific hiding place, into that precise intersection of smallness and survival, God showed up and called him a mighty warrior. Not what he had been. Not what he was performing, not what the world around him could see. God called him what he was in the realm of the spirit, before the natural world had caught up to the declaration. And that is what is happening to you right now. The words being spoken over you in this moment are not describing your current circumstances. They are describing your assignment. They are naming what is already true about you, in a dimension that your natural eyes cannot yet access. You are not who your failures say you are. You are not the sum of the seasons where things did not work out the way you believed they would. You are not the label that was placed on you by people who could not see past the winepress to the warrior hiding inside it. You are what heaven has declared you to be, and heaven declared you chosen before you took your first breath in this world. Gideon's first response to the angel was not worship. It was not gratitude. It was not immediate and confident acceptance of the calling. His first response was a question that sounded a great deal like complaint. He said, "If the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us?" He pointed to the silence of God during the years of suffering. He pointed to the gap between the stories he had heard about what God had done in previous generations and the reality of what he was living in the present. 1. He was honest about the disappointment. He was transparent about the confusion. He did not perform a faith he did not feel in that moment. And the extraordinary thing is that God did not correct him for the question. God did not rebuke him for the rawness of his response. God looked past the complaint and went straight to the commission. God said, "Go in the strength you have. Save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you? Go in the strength you have, not the strength you wish you had, not the strength you are planning to develop someday when everything falls into place, not the strength that will arrive after you have worked through every insecurity and resolved every unfinished area of your interior life. Go in the strength you have right now, in the middle of the process, in the middle of the questions, in the middle of the season that does not look anything like what you imagined destiny was supposed to look like. Because the one who is sending you is not sending you alone. And the presence of the one who sends is the multiplication factor that makes your current strength more than enough for what is ahead. But Gideon pushed back again. He said, "Pardon me, my lord, but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." He was not being falsely modest. He was being genuinely accurate about what he could see from where he was standing. From a purely natural assessment of resources and position, he was right. He did not have the army. He did not have the backing. He did not have the credentials or the lineage or the platform that the task seemed to require. And every single one of those observations was true and also completely irrelevant to what God was about to do through him. Because the calling of a chosen one is never sized to the chosen one's current capacity. It is always sized to the capacity of the one who does the choosing. And that is the thing that the enemy does not want you to understand about your own situation. The gap between where you are and where you are called to go is not evidence that you were wrong about the calling. It is evidence that you are going to need a power beyond your own to get there, and that dependence is not your weakness. It is your greatest spiritual asset. Judges chapter 6, verse 14. The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you?" That verse is alive today. That commission did not expire when Gideon walked off the page of history. It transferred. It carried forward through every generation of chosen ones who felt too small for what was being asked of them. And it has landed here, in this moment, in this message, directly in front of you. Go in the strength you have. You do not need to wait until you feel fully prepared. You do not need to wait until the fear is completely gone. Gideon went to the battle with the fear still present. He went because the commission was louder than the fear. He went because something in him understood that obedience in the face of inadequacy is the very thing that makes space for the miraculous to move. And then God did something that looked completely counterintuitive to anyone watching from the outside. He reduced Gideon's army. He started with 32,000 soldiers and systematically brought that number down to 300. 300 men to face an enemy that the scripture describes as impossible to count, as numerous as locusts, as countless as sand on the seashore. 300 against an uncountable multitude. And God said, "That is enough, because I want Israel to know that this victory did not come from their own strength. I want it to be undeniable that something beyond the natural was at work here. I want the size of the victory to be so disproportionate to the size of the army that no one can explain it without acknowledging me. Your season of reduction has been the same kind of divine mathematics. The things that were taken from you, the relationships that ended, the opportunities that fell through, the plans that collapsed, the resources that did not come through when you expected them, the support that was withdrawn. the doors that would not open no matter how hard you knocked. None of that was random subtraction. It was purposeful reduction. It was heaven making sure that when the victory comes, and it is coming, no one will be able to look at your life and say, well, she had all the right connections. Well, he had all the advantages. Well, they were in the right place at the right time by their own engineering. When what is coming arrives in your life, it will be so clearly the fingerprint of God that the only appropriate response from anyone watching will be awe. Because the army of 300 is enough when God is the general. And God has never stopped being your general. Gideon neared a torch in a clay jar. That is the image I need you to sit with for a moment. A flame hidden inside a vessel carried into the darkness of the enemy's camp. And at the appointed moment, on the signal from the commander, every chosen one in that company broke their jar and lifted their torch, and the darkness had no answer for what filled it. The enemy turned on themselves in confusion. The victory that looked impossible became undeniable, and it began not with a sword raised in power, but with a jar broken in obedience. Your breakthrough will follow the same pattern. It will begin not with the demonstration of strength, but with the breaking open of what has been containing the light inside you. The pressure you have been feeling in this season is not destroying you. It is the clay jar beginning to crack. And what is about to come out of you when it fully breaks will light up territory that has been dark for far too long. You have been in the winepress long enough. You have been threshing wheat in a place that was not designed for what you carry. The angel of the Lord is sitting with you right now, in this moment, and the word going out over your life is the same word that went out over Gideon. Mighty warrior, not someday, not after the transformation is complete. Right now in the hiding place, in the place of survival, in the season where you feel the least qualified and the most overlooked. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. And June 12 and 13 are the days when the jar begins to break open in ways that will be visible not just to you, but to everyone around you who has been watching and waiting and wondering what was being built inside the silence of your season. The torch is still burning. Everything that was spoken over Gideon in that winepress, everything that moved through his clay jar and shattered the darkness of the enemy's camp, is still in motion inside your story. The fire did not go out when his chapter closed. It transferred, it carried forward, and it is burning inside you right now with an intensity that your current circumstances have not been able to extinguish, no matter how hard they have tried. Because that is the nature of the flame that heaven places inside a chosen one. It does not respond to the weather of your season. It does not dim because the opposition increased. It does not shrink because the road became longer than you expected. It burns according to the source that lit it, and the source has never had a power outage. The source has never gone offline. The source has never looked at your situation and concluded that the fire was no longer worth maintaining. Heaven is still fueling what was placed inside you, and what is coming on June 12 and 13 is not the beginning of the fire. It is the moment the fire becomes visible to a world that could not see it while it was still inside the jar. But there is something that chosen ones do not talk about enough. There is a particular kind of silence that happens between the promise and the fulfillment. Not the comfortable silence of waiting rooms where the chairs are soft and the coffee is warm. The other kind. The silence that arrives after you have done everything you were told to do, after you have obeyed the instruction, after you have stepped out in faith, after you have broken the jar and lifted the torch, and then you stand in the aftermath, and the landscape around you does not immediately look like victory. It looks like a field after a battle. It looks like the morning after a night that took everything out of you. It looks like the space between what was promised and what has yet to fully materialize in the physical world. And in that space, the voice of the enemy is very loud. In that space, the narrative of inadequacy tries to reassert itself. In that space, the question that Gideon asked under the oak tree comes back around again. If God is with me, why does it still look like this? And here is what heaven says into that specific silence. The silence is not evidence of absence. The silence is evidence of depth. The things that God is building in your life right now are being built at a level that requires foundations you cannot see from the surface. When a skyscraper is being constructed, the longest and most intensive phase of the work happens underground. The excavation, the foundation laying, the reinforcement of everything that will eventually hold the weight of what rises above the ground. If you walked past a construction site during that phase, you would not see a building going up. You would see a hole in the ground. You would see machinery working in a pit. You would see what looks like destruction rather than construction. And you would be completely wrong about what was happening. The depth of the hole is not evidence that the building was abandoned. It is evidence that something significant is being built. And the depth of the silence in your season is the same kind of evidence. Gideon did not have the luxury of seeing the blueprint. He did not receive a detailed architectural diagram of what God was building through his obedience. He received the next instruction: go in the strength you have. Break the jar, lift the torch, blow the trumpet. One step at a time, in the dark with a reduced army, against an enemy that looked uncountable. And each time he obeyed the next instruction, the next layer of the blueprint revealed itself. Not the whole picture at once, just enough to take the next step. And that is the pattern of how heaven works with chosen ones in every generation. Not the full map all at once. The next step, then the next, then the next. Because the journey of a chosen one is not designed to be navigated by sight. It is designed to be navigated by something that goes deeper than sight, something that does not require perfect visibility to keep moving forward. There is a word for that something, and it is not a word that gets used casually in the vocabulary of a chosen one who truly understands what it means. It is not a feeling. It is not a positive attitude dressed up in spiritual language. It is not the performance of confidence for the benefit of people who are watching. It is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. It is the internal knowing that what has been promised is more real than what can currently be measured or observed. It is the capacity to hold the promise and the process simultaneously, without letting the process cancel the promise. Gideon carried it into the valley with 300 men and clay jars. You are carrying it right now in the middle of a season that has not yet shown you the full picture of what is being built through every single experience you have walked through. And here is the part of Gideon's story that most people pass over too quickly. Before the battle, before the jars were broken and the torches were lifted and the enemy was routed, God did something quietly and personally for Gideon that had nothing to do with strategy or military logistics. God knew that Gideon was still afraid. God knew that the commission had been received and the army had been reduced and the instructions had been given. But underneath all of that obedience, there was still a man who was genuinely, deeply, humanly afraid of what he was walking toward. And God did not rebuke him for that fear. God did not tell him to get his emotions in order before he was allowed to proceed with the calling. Instead, God said to him, "If you are afraid to attack, go down to the camp with your servant Purah and listen to what they are saying." And Gideon went. And what he heard in the enemy's camp was a dream being recounted by one soldier to another, a dream about a loaf of barley, bread tumbling into the Midianite camp and flattening a tent. And the interpretation that the Midianite soldier gave to his companion was this: "This can only be the sword of Gideon. God has given the whole camp into his hands." The enemy was already talking about Gideon's victory before Gideon had taken a single step toward the battle. The enemy's own camp was already carrying the narrative of the chosen one's triumph. And that is the word for you today. Right now, in the realm of the Spirit, in the dimension that you cannot yet see with your natural eyes, the conversation about your victory is already happening. The forces that have been assigned against you are already discussing what is coming. And what they are discussing is not your defeat. What they are discussing is what happens when a chosen one steps into the fullness of what heaven prepared for them. The enemy knows what is coming on June 12 and 13. That is why the opposition has been so intense in the season leading up to it. That is why the pressure has been so specific. That is why it has felt so targeted and so personal. Because it is personal. And because what is coming is real enough that the opposition has been working overtime to prevent you from arriving at the threshold with your torch still burning. But your torch is still burning. That is the testimony of this moment. After everything that has come against you, after every strategy the enemy has deployed to extinguish what is inside you, the fire is still there. Reduced perhaps, quieter than it once was, maybe, but present, undeniable, unextinguished, and a fire that has survived everything that came against it in the preparation season is exactly the kind of fire that is ready to light up the victory season. You did not come through all of that just to arrive at the threshold and stop. You came through all of that because the one who called you has been preparing you for precisely this moment, and the preparation is almost complete. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. That is the operating system of a chosen one. Not certainty about how everything will unfold. Not the absence of questions or fear, but the deep, unshakable knowing that what has been promised is real, that the one who made the promise has never failed to keep it, and that the distance between where you are standing today and where you are going is already being crossed by a grace that moves faster than your circumstances. Gideon did not need to understand every detail of the battle plan. He needed to hold the promise long enough to take the next step. And the next step is what brought him into the most improbable, most undeniable, most history-altering victory of his generation. Your next step is the same kind of step. It does not require you to have resolved every question. It does not require the fear to be completely gone. It does not require the landscape around you to already look like the victory that is coming. It requires you to hold the torch in the darkness and trust that the signal is coming. It requires you to stand in the gap between the promise and the fulfillment, without letting the gap convince you that the promise was wrong. It requires you to be a chosen one not just in the moments when it feels glorious, but in the moments when it feels like a clay jar about to break under pressure. Because those are the moments that determine what happens when the jar finally opens and the light floods the field. June 12 and 13 are not distant concepts. They are the signal. They are the moment when the torches go up and the darkness has no answer for what chosen ones are carrying. You have been in the preparation long enough. The valley is ahead. The army of 300 is assembled. And the God who never miscounted the strength required for the victory is the same God who has been with you in every single moment of the season that brought you to this threshold. The silence was not absence. The reduction was not rejection. The pressure was not punishment. It was all preparation. Every single piece of it was preparation. And you are prepared. The torches are lifted. The silence has spoken its truth. And now, as you stand at the edge of everything that has been prepared for you, something shifts in the atmosphere of this message. Not away from the sacred, not away from the anointing that has been moving through every word spoken over your life in these pages, but deeper into it. Because what heaven has been building in you is not only spiritual, it is total, it is complete. It covers every dimension of who you are, including the one that most religious conversations leave out entirely. The dimension of your mind, the architecture of your thinking, the frequency at which your brain is operating as you step into the season that June 12 and 13 represent. And what is about to be said is not a departure from the anointing. It is an extension of it, because the God who created your spirit also created your brain. And the God who designed the frequencies of heaven also designed the frequencies inside your skull. There is no separation between the sacred and the scientific when both were authored by the same hand. Here is what the research has confirmed, and what chosen ones have always carried at a level deeper than intellectual understanding. You operate at a different frequency than the people around you, not metaphorically, not poetically, literally. The brainwave activity of someone who is walking in purpose, who is connected to something greater than themselves, who carries a calling that will not go quiet, no matter how much life tries to suppress it. That brainwave activity is measurably different from the activity of someone who is simply moving through their days without that kind of internal fire. Researchers call the frequency associated with peak creativity, deep intuition, rapid learning, and what some scientists describe as moments of sudden insight. They call it gamma. And the frequency associated with the deep, receptive, open state where the mind becomes most available to new understanding, where the internal noise quiets and something clearer begins to come through. They call it theta. Chosen ones carry both of these frequencies. They carry them naturally. They carry them in their spiritual DNA. But years of pressure, of survival mode, of living in a world that was not designed for the kind of depth you carry, can suppress those frequencies in ways that affect not just your thinking, but your ability to receive and act on everything heaven is releasing in your direction. This is where the work of Dr. James Rivers becomes something worth understanding. Dr. Rivers is a neuroscientist with more than 30 years of dedicated research into the relationship between brainwave patterns and human performance. His work has connections to some of the most rigorous scientific institutions on the planet, including research environments linked to MIT and NASA. What he discovered across decades of study is not a new idea invented by marketing. It is the scientific confirmation of something that ancient wisdom traditions have pointed toward for thousands of years. The brain can be guided. The frequency at which it operates is not fixed by your past experiences or your current circumstances. It can be shifted. It can be entrained. It can be brought back into alignment with the patterns that produce clarity, creativity, intuition, and the kind of focused, powerful thinking that turns a calling into a reality. The mechanism through which this happens is called brainwave entrainment, and the tool that Dr. Rivers spent the most intensive years of his research developing and refining is called the genius wave. The way it works is simpler than you might expect for something with this level of impact. When your ears receive specific sound frequencies, your brain does something remarkable. It begins to synchronize with those frequencies. It is called the frequency following response, and it is one of the most well-documented phenomena in neuroscience. The Genius Wave uses precisely calibrated audio, including binaural beats and isochronic tones, to guide your brain gently and consistently into the theta and gamma states that are associated with your highest level of functioning. And the protocol requires only 7 minutes a day. Not an hour of meditation that you do not have time for. Not a complicated practice that requires special skills or prior experience. 7 minutes with headphones, once a day, and your brain begins the process of returning to the frequency it was designed to operate at. 7 minutes that chosen ones are using to close the gap between the calling they carry and the mental clarity required to walk it out in the practical, daily, visible reality of their lives. And the stories that have come back from people who have committed to those 7 minutes are the kind of stories that make the scientific explanation feel almost secondary. A woman named Patricia, a middle school teacher in her mid-40s, who had been carrying a dream of writing a curriculum that could reach children others had given up on, had been stuck in the same place for 3 years, not for lack of desire, not for lack of calling, but because every time she sat down to work on it, the mental fog that had accumulated from years of exhaustion and stress made the thinking feel like moving through concrete. She started the Genius Wave. Within the first 2 weeks, she described something she had not experienced in years. She called it mental daylight. The fog lifted. The ideas began to move again. Within 60 days, she had completed the first draft of something she had been carrying in her heart for 36 months. And she wrote back to say that what changed was not just the thinking. What changed was the sense that she was finally operating as the version of herself she had always known was in there, somewhere, waiting for the conditions to emerge. A man named Daniel, a 41-year-old project manager who had been passed over for advancement 3 times in 4 years, despite being, by every measurable standard, the most qualified person in his department, began using the Genius Wave after a conversation with a colleague who had experienced significant changes in their own mental performance. Within the first month, Daniel noticed that his ability to see solutions to complex problems had changed. Not that he was working harder, not that he was putting in more hours, but that the quality of his thinking had elevated in a way that became visible to the people around him. The 4th opportunity for advancement arrived 8 weeks after he started. He received it, and he said in his follow-up message that the most important shift was not external. The most important shift was that he stopped second-guessing the clarity that was coming to him. He started trusting the quality of his own mind again, and that trust changed everything that followed. Now, I want to be honest with you about something, because you deserve honesty in a message that is asking you to step into the fullness of what you carry. When you consider adding something to your life, especially something that involves an investment of any kind, there is a voice that rises up and begins to calculate. It begins to weigh. It begins to ask whether this is the right moment, whether the resources are there, whether it will actually make the difference that is being described. And that voice is not your enemy. That voice is the wisdom of a person who has been through enough disappointments to know that not every promise delivers what it claims. That voice deserves to be heard. And so I want to speak to it directly before it speaks louder than what the rest of this message is saying. I know that $39 is not nothing. For some of you listening right now, $39 represents a real decision. It represents something you are choosing to prioritize over something else. And that choice deserves to be made with full information, not with pressure and not with hype. So here is the full information. The Genius Wave normally carries a price of $49. through the link in the pinned comment below this message. It is available today for $39. That access comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee, not 30 days, 90 days. 3 full months of using it every day, of giving your brain the consistent input of those 7 minutes. And if at the end of that time you do not feel that something has shifted, you contact the team, and every dollar comes back to you. No argument, no complicated process, 100% return. The risk is structured entirely in your favor. The only question is whether you are willing to give yourself 90 days to discover what your mind operates like when it is finally running at the frequency it was designed for. And there is one thing that must be said clearly, because the enemy counterfeits everything that carries real value. There are versions of this product circulating in places that are not authorized, at prices that seem more attractive because they come without the guarantee, without the authentic calibration, and without the support of the research that stands behind the original. Do not purchase the Genius Wave from any source other than the link in the pinned comment below this video. That is the only link that connects you to the authentic product, the full guarantee, and the direct support of the team that Direct Rivers built to stand behind this work. Any other source is a counterfeit, and a counterfeit does not carry the frequency of the original. This offer is not permanent. The pricing available through the pinned link is time-sensitive, and the number of people who can access it at this investment level is limited by the terms under which it is being made available. If you have felt something stirring in you as this message has moved forward, if the words spoken over Gideon have landed somewhere real inside you, if the connection between your spiritual calling and your cognitive capacity has begun to make the kind of sense that changes how you see your next season, then the instruction is simple. Go to the pinned comment, follow the link. Take the step that Gideon took when he went down to the enemy camp before the battle. Go and receive the confirmation that what is coming is already prepared. Your mind was built for this season. It is time to operate at the frequency that matches the calling. The link has been placed in front of you, and the invitation has been made with full transparency and full respect for your intelligence and your journey. What happens next with that is between you and the wisdom that has been guiding every step that brought you to this message. But now the word turns again, not away from what was just said, but forward through it, because the Genius Wave is a tool, and tools serve the one who holds them, and the one who holds it is a chosen one who was built for more than cognitive performance, who was built for something that no frequency of sound, no matter how precisely calibrated, can manufacture on its own. You were built for the kind of transformation that begins in the deep interior places where science has not yet learned to measure, and that transformation is not complete. It is not even close to complete. What was seeded in you before you were born is still growing, still pressing, still reaching toward the light of a season that is almost here. And the word that must be spoken now is not about products or protocols. It is about the cost of the calling, the specific, personal, often invisible cost that chosen ones pay in the seasons that precede the breakthrough they were built for. Gideon paid that cost. He paid it in years of hiding in the winepress before the angel came. He paid it in the fear that did not leave him even after the commission was received. He paid it in the moment when God reduced his army from 32,000 to 300, and every natural instinct in him must have screamed that this was not a reduction but an abandonment. He paid it in the long night before the battle, when the only thing that kept him moving forward was the quiet confirmation he received when he went down to the enemy camp and heard a soldier dreaming about his victory. He paid the cost that chosen ones always pay. The cost of holding the promise in the dark when the evidence of its fulfillment is not yet visible. And that cost is real. It is not spiritual poetry. It is a genuine weight that presses on the chosen one in ways that other people in their lives often cannot see or understand. Because the people around you did not sign up for the same assignment. They are carrying their own lives, their own struggles, their own journeys, and most of them are not walking in the particular kind of tension that comes with carrying a calling that has not yet fully manifested. They love you. Many of them genuinely want the best for you. But they cannot always see what you are holding. They cannot always feel the weight of the promise that you have been carrying through seasons that tested every part of you. And so the encouragement does not always come from the people closest to you. The confirmation does not always arrive through the relationships you expected it to arrive through. Sometimes, most of the time, the word that sustains a chosen one, in the corridor between the promise and the fulfillment, comes from a source that operates outside the visible and the predictable. It comes from a message they were not expecting to find. It comes from a verse that falls open at exactly the right moment. It comes from a quiet knowing that rises up in the middle of a night when everything around them is silent. It comes from heaven, directly, personally, specifically, to the exact place in their heart where the doubt was loudest. And that is what is happening right now. This message is not a coincidence that found you by accident. This is the word that heaven dispatched for this specific moment in your journey. Not a general word for a general audience. A specific word for someone who has been carrying something specific through a season that has been longer and harder than they anticipated. And the content of that word, beneath all the language about Gideon and neuroscience and the dates on the calendar, the content beneath all of it is this: you have not been forgotten. You have not been passed over. You have not misread the signs about who you are and what you are here to do. The delay was not denial. The silence was not absence. The reduction was not rejection. Every single element of what you have walked through has been working together in a way that is far more intentional than it looked from inside the experience of living it. The enemy understood something about your calling before you did. That is why the opposition started early. That is why certain doors closed in ways that did not make sense at the time. That is why certain relationships were disrupted. Certain opportunities were redirected. Certain seasons felt like they were designed specifically to make you question the validity of everything you believed about yourself and your purpose. The enemy read the assignment written over your life and made a strategic decision to apply maximum pressure at every point where the calling was most vulnerable. At the point of your confidence, at the point of your resources, at the point of your relationships, at the point of your sense of identity. The attack was not random. It was targeted. And targeted attacks are only deployed against targets that represent a genuine threat. The enemy does not waste strategic resources on someone who is not carrying something dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. The intensity of the opposition in your life is a measurement of the significance of what you carry. And here is the verse that must be spoken into that reality now. Because the chosen one needs more than encouragement. The chosen one needs the anchor of a word that does not shift with the circumstances, that does not get louder or quieter depending on how the season feels, that holds its ground in the dark just as firmly as it holds its ground in the light. Romans chapter 8, verse 28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. All things. Not the comfortable things, Not the things that made sense at the time. Not the things that looked like blessings while they were happening. All things. The loss and the delay, and the confusion, and the closed door, and the season in the winepress, and the reduction of the army, and the long night before the battle. All of it. Every single piece of it has been, is being, and will be worked together for your good by a God, whose definition of good is larger and deeper and more comprehensive than your current perspective allows you to fully see. You do not need to understand how it is all working together. You do not need to trace the logic of every event that brought you to this moment. You need to trust the one who holds the full picture while you are living inside the portion that is currently visible to you. And that trust is not blind. It is built on a track record. It is built on a God who has never once in all of human history made a promise and failed to keep it. Gideon did not understand the reduction of his army in the moment that it happened. He did not have the benefit of the chapter break that lets modern readers see what was coming. He was inside the experience of watching his resources decrease at the exact moment when the assignment was increasing. And he still moved forward. Not because the math made sense, not because the strategy was visible, but because the word that had come to him in the winepress was still louder than the voice of the fear. Go in the strength you have. Am I not sending you? That word did not change when the army got smaller. It did not get revised when the circumstances looked more impossible. It held. And the one who held it walked into the most unlikely victory of his generation. Your circumstances are about to do the same thing that Gideon's circumstances did. They are about to become the backdrop against which a victory is displayed that no one who knows your story will be able to explain without acknowledging the hand of God. The reduction was not the end. It was the setup. The silence was not the conclusion. It was the foundation. The delay was not a denial. It was a divine timing mechanism that was counting down to a moment that has already been written into the calendar of heaven. And that moment has a name in your natural world. It has a date, June 12 and 13. And between now and then, the word being spoken over you is not wait in fear. It is move in faith. Move with the torch still burning. Move with the jar still in your hand. Move with the understanding that the army of 300 has always been enough when the general of heaven is leading the advance. Because chosen ones do not arrive at their breakthrough by accident. They arrive by accumulated obedience, by one step taken in the dark that leads to another step, and then another. Each one building on the last, each one adding to a momentum that is invisible from the outside, but completely undeniable from the inside. You have been building that momentum. Every prayer that felt like it hit a ceiling was adding to it. Every day you showed up when you did not feel like it was adding to it. Every time you chose to hold the promise, when it would have been easier to put it down and walk away. You were adding to a momentum that is about to become visible in a way that changes the entire landscape of your life. The torch is still burning. The signal is almost here, and you were built for exactly this. The momentum is real. Everything that has been spoken over you in this message, every layer of truth that has been pressed into the soil of your spirit since the first word was released, is building towards something that cannot be stopped by anything the enemy deploys in the time between now and the threshold of June 12 and 13. The torch is burning. The army of 300 is assembled. The word that found Gideon in the winepress is the same word that found you in this moment. And that word does not return empty. It goes out and it accomplishes exactly what it was sent to accomplish. In your finances, in your family, in your health, in your relationships, in the dreams that have been waiting inside you through seasons that tested every ounce of your endurance. The word is working right now, in ways you can feel and in ways that are still moving beneath the surface of what your natural eyes can see. And in this moment, before the message moves into the next layer of what heaven is releasing over chosen ones in this hour, there is something that needs to be spoken about this community, about what it means that you are here, about what it means that thousands of people who carry the same fire, who have walked through the same corridors of silence and reduction and pressure, are gathering in this space and finding each other through the shared language of a calling that will not be silenced. Because that is what this channel is. It is not a content platform in the ordinary sense of that word. It is a gathering place. It is a space where chosen ones who have spent too much of their journey feeling isolated and misunderstood by the world around them discover that there is a room full of people who speak their language, who understand the weight they are carrying, who know what it is to hold a promise through a season that gives them no visible evidence that the promise is still alive. This is that room, and the room is growing. Every time you hit the like button on this video, you are doing something that goes beyond a gesture of appreciation for content you found valuable. You are casting a vote in the algorithm that determines how far this word travels. You are telling the systems that go what gets seen and what gets buried that this message deserves to reach the next chosen one who is sitting in their winepress right now, unaware that there is a community that sees them, that a word has been prepared for them, that the angel is already sitting under their oak tree, waiting to call them mighty warrior. Your like is not a small thing. It is an act of service to someone you have never met who needs exactly what you received in this message today. One tap, one vote, one ripple that moves out from where you are sitting and potentially changes the trajectory of someone else's entire season. That is the power of a simple act done with intentional purpose. And if this message reached something in you that goes deeper than entertainment, if it touched the place in your spirit where the calling lives, where the promise has been sitting through all the seasons that tried to make you doubt it, then share it. Not because you are required to, not because there is any obligation attached to the word that was spoken over your life today, but because chosen ones were never meant to carry the fire alone. Gideon did not go into the valley by himself. He went with 300 people who each carried their own torch in their own clay jar. And the victory that night was not the product of one person's obedience. It was the collective act of 300 chosen ones who broke their jars at the same moment and flooded the darkness with a light that the enemy had no capacity to extinguish. When you share this message, you are inviting someone into the circle of torches. You are saying to a person in your world, I found something that met me where I was, and I believe it will meet you where you are too. That is not promotion. That is the act of a chosen one who understands that the calling is never only personal. It is always also communal. Subscribe to this channel if you have not already done so. And when you do, turn on the notification bell. Because what is being built here is not a single message dropped into the void and forgotten. It is a sustained, consistent, intentional release of words that are aimed at the specific frequency of chosen ones in every season. The word that met you here today is part of a larger conversation that is going to continue through June 12 and 13 and beyond, through every threshold that follows, through every new layer of what heaven is releasing over the people who have been faithful in the corridor. You do not want to miss the next installment of what is being built in this space. The best word for your next season may be the one that arrives in a video you would have missed if the notification had not reached you in time. Subscribe, Stay connected. Stay in the room where the torches are burning. And now there is one more thing to be said, and it is said with the same honesty and the same directness that has characterized every word of this message from the beginning. This channel exists because someone said yes to an assignment, said yes to sitting in the space of a calling that required time, preparation, research, and the kind of sustained investment that does not happen without cost. The hours that go into crafting words that are precise enough to meet a chosen one, exactly where they are. The work of building a community where the language of calling and purpose and divine destiny is spoken fluently and consistently. That work has a real and tangible weight behind it, and the ability to sustain it, to continue it, to expand it into the reach that it deserves to have in the lives of chosen ones who have not yet but depends in part on the generosity of the people who have already been met by it. If this message added something to your life today, if it gave you language for something you have been carrying without words, if it confirmed something that you needed confirmed, if it strengthened something in you that was beginning to bend under the pressure of the season, consider supporting this ministry through the donate link that you will find in the description below and in the pinned comment. Not an obligation, not a transaction, an act of partnership, an investment into the continuation of a word that was sent to find chosen ones in their winepress and call them mighty warrior. Whatever you are able to give, given with the spirit of a chosen one who understands that generosity is a frequency, that what you release comes back to you, measured in ways that go beyond what can be counted in a bank account. That gift is received with gratitude and with the full understanding of what it means for you to have given it in this season. Because giving in a season of personal pressure is not foolishness. It is faith. It is the clay jar being broken open. It is the torch being lifted. It is the chosen one saying to heaven, I trust that what I release will be returned to me in the currency of the breakthrough that is coming. And heaven honors that kind of faith, not someday in a vague and general way, specifically, measurably, in the timeline of a life that is about to shift in ways that will make the investment of this season look like the smallest seed that ever produced the largest harvest. The donate link is in the description. It is in the pinned comment. It is an open door for anyone who feels the pull of generosity in this moment and wants to act on it before the feeling passes. And to those of you who give, and to those of you who simply liked and shared and subscribed, and to those of you who have simply sat here and received every word of this message with an open heart. The word going out over your life right now is the same word that has been going out since the first sentence of this message found you. You are chosen. You are not here by accident. The calling is real. The promise is alive. The season of your visibility is not a distant dream. It is the next chapter. And the next chapter begins on June 12 and 13 with a torchlight that no darkness in your history has been able to extinguish. You made it to the threshold, and chosen ones who make it to the threshold do not turn back. They lift the torch, they break the jar, they move forward into everything that was written for them before the foundation of the world was laid. The room is full of torches tonight, and yours is one of them. The torches are burning in every direction now. The room that felt empty in the seasons of silence has filled with a light that chosen ones carried through corridors that tried to convince them the fire was gone. But fire does not die simply because it is contained. Fire does not go out simply because the jar around it is pressed from every side. And the chosen one who has held the flame through the darkest stretch of the preparation season is not the same person who entered that season. Something has been forged. Something has been refined. Something has been built in the interior places of your life that cannot be manufactured any other way than through the specific combination of pressure and time, and faithfulness that you have been walking through. The winepress was not a dead end. It was a forge. And what comes out of a forge is not weakened by the heat it survived. It is stronger because of it, more precisely shaped, more capable of holding an edge that cuts through ordinary materials cannot penetrate. You are coming out of the forge. And what has been shaped in you in this season is about to be used in ways that will make every moment of the heat feel not just bearable but necessary. Gideon understood this after the battle, in a way he could not have understood before it. There is a knowledge that only comes through the experience of having moved forward in obedience, when every natural instinct said to retreat, and then watching what happens when heaven honors that obedience with a victory that defies every calculation. Before the valley of Jezreel, Gideon knew the promise intellectually. He had heard the word. He had received the commission. He had gone through the confirmation at the enemy camp and heard the dream that spoke of his victory before it happened. But knowing the promise and experiencing the fulfillment of it are two entirely different things. They produce two entirely different qualities of faith in the interior life of a chosen one. The faith that exists before the fulfillment is precious. It is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. But the faith that exists after the fulfillment, the faith that has watched a promise move from the invisible realm into the visible, tangible, undeniable reality of lived experience. That faith carries a different quality. It carries the weight of testimony, and testimony is one of the most powerful weapons a chosen one carries into every season that follows. Because what the enemy cannot answer is the testimony of someone who has already watched God move in the impossible. What silence cannot maintain is its grip on a chosen one who has already heard the sound of a victory that looked completely out of reach from the natural perspective. And what doubt cannot sustain itself against is the memory of a moment when the jar broke open and the torch was lifted, and the darkness of the enemy's camp was flooded with a light that 300 ordinary people in extraordinary obedience produced by simply showing up and doing what they were told. Gideon carried that memory into every subsequent season of his life, and that memory was armor. Not the kind of armor that protects from external attack, the kind of armor that protects the interior landscape of a chosen one from the erosion that comes with time, with familiarity, with the tendency that every human heart has toward forgetting the sacred when the immediate is pressing loudly for attention. You are going to need that kind of armor for what is coming after June 12 and 13. Not because what is coming is dangerous in a way that should produce fear, but because chosen ones who step into a new level of their calling are immediately exposed to a new level of opposition that is calibrated to the elevation. The higher the calling moves into visibility, the more sophisticated the strategies of the enemy become in response to it. This is not a reason to hesitate at the threshold. It is a reason to enter the new season fully equipped with the testimony of everything that God has already done in the seasons that brought you here. Your testimony is not just a story you tell. It is a weapon you carry. It is the record of every time heaven showed up in your impossibility and produced something that your natural resources could never have manufactured. And that record does not expire. It does not become less powerful with age. It becomes more powerful because every new season of challenge that you walk through and overcome adds another layer to the testimony that the enemy has no answer for. And here is what must be understood about the weight that chosen ones carry in the elevated seasons. The crown is heavier than it looks from the outside. The people who watch the chosen one from a distance see the visibility, the anointing, the fruit of a calling operating in its fullness. They see what looks like ease and flow and grace, and the apparent effortlessness of someone who is walking in alignment with their purpose. What they do not see is the weight behind the grace. What they do not see is the discipline behind the anointing. What they do not see is the accumulated cost of years of preparation that made the visible season possible. The crown is not light simply because it looks beautiful. It is heavy, and the strength to carry it was built in the winepress. The strength to carry it was built in the seasons of reduction and silence, and the long night before the battle. Every moment of that preparation was making you strong enough for what was being placed on your head. And with that weight comes accountability. Gideon carried the accountability of what he had been given. And in the later seasons of his life, when the weight was not managed with the same wisdom that he had brought to the valley of Jezreel, the consequences were real and visible and painful. The chosen one who receives a great deal is held to a great deal, not as punishment, as stewardship. The one who is given 5 talents is not held to the same account as the one who is given 2, because the assignment is proportional to the preparation, and your preparation has been extensive. Your corridor has been long. The weight of what has been built in you through every season of pressure and silence and faithfulness in the unseen places is substantial, and the accountability that comes with what you are about to step into is proportional to that preparation. This is not something to shrink from. It is something to step into with the full awareness that the one who assigned the calling has also equipped you for the accountability that comes with it. Chosen ones who understand the weight of their crown do not carry it carelessly. They carry it with the awareness that what they are holding was not given to them for their own comfort, or their own advancement, or their own visibility for its own sake. It was given to them for the sake of every person whose life is supposed to be touched by the fullness of that calling. Every chosen one carries a ministry that is larger than themselves. Gideon's victory was not Gideon's alone. It was the deliverance of an entire people who had been living under oppression that they no longer had the strength to resist on their own. The 300 torches did not light up the valley for the enjoyment of the 300. They lit up the valley for the freedom of a multitude who were watching from the edges of the darkness, hoping against all visible evidence that something was about to change. Your breakthrough is not only for you. The people who are waiting for the version of you that walks in the fullness of this calling, the people whose lives are supposed to be changed by what you carry, they are the reason the preparation was worth it. They are the reason the winepress had to be endured. They are the reason the army had to be reduced to a size that made the victory undeniable rather than merely impressive. Psalm 37, verse 23. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in his way. Every step, not just the steps that felt like progress, not just the steps that moved in the direction of visible advancement. Every step, including the ones that felt like they were circling back to territory already covered, including the ones that felt like retreat, including the ones that happened in the dark with no visible marker of direction or destination. Every single step of your journey has been ordered, not permitted to happen, and then retroactively worked into the plan. Ordered, intentionally directed, specifically placed in the sequence of your life by a God who does not waste movement, who does not allow a chosen one to take a step that is not contributing to the construction of something that has already been fully designed in the realm of the Spirit. This means that the step you are taking right now The step of receiving this word, of sitting in the presence of a message that is speaking directly into the interior places of your calling, is an ordered step. It is not accidental. It is not peripheral. It is part of the sequence. It belongs in the timeline of everything that has been building toward June 12 and 13, and the seasons that follow. And the next step, the one that comes after this message ends, that step is also ordered. You do not need to engineer it. You do not need to calculate it. You do not need to figure out in advance exactly how it fits into the larger picture that only heaven can see in its entirety. You need to take it in the strength you have, with the torch still burning, trusting that the one who ordered this step has already ordered one, the next one, and the one after that, and the one after that, all the way to the completion of everything that was written over your life before you drew your first breath. The crown is real, the weight is real, the accountability is real, and the grace that was given to carry all of it is more than equal to the task. Gideon proved that with 300 torches in the darkness of an enemy camp. You are about to prove it with the specific calling, the specific gifting, the specific history of preparation that is uniquely yours and that no other chosen one on the planet carries in exactly the same way. The forge produced something specific, not generic, not interchangeable. Specific to you, specific to the assignment, specific to the season that is arriving on June 12 and 13 with the full weight of heaven behind it. The steps are ordered, the crown is ready, and you are stronger than the season that tried to convince you that you were not. The crown has been placed, the steps have been ordered, and every word that has moved through this message since the beginning has been building towards something that chosen ones in every generation have had to face at a particular point in their journey. The point where the preparation ends and the possession begins. The point where the corridor gives way to the open field. The point where the torch that was carried in secret is lifted in the sight of everyone who was watching and waiting and wondering if the fire was ever going to be visible. That point has a name in your story. It has a date and everything that has been spoken over you from the moment this message found. You has been aimed at making sure that when you arrive at that point, you arrive prepared, positioned, and fully aware of what you are stepping into. Not surprised by the weight of it, not overwhelmed by the visibility of it, not unprepared for the accountability that comes with carrying a calling in its fullness, rather than in the quiet of the corridor where only heaven could see what was being built. But before the possession comes the final test of the preparation. And this is the part of the chosen one's journey that the enemy works hardest to exploit. Because the final test is not the most dramatic one. It is not the most visible one. It is not the one that looks like a battle from the outside. The final test of the preparation season is the test of patience in the last mile. The test of holding the promise with the same quality of faith in the final stretch that you held it with at the beginning, when the calling was fresh and the fire was new, and the possibility of the fulfillment still carried the glow of something recently received. Holding that same quality of faith in the last mile, when the journey has been long and the body is tired, and the mind has processed the promise so many times that it can recite it without feeling it, that is the test, and it is a harder test than it sounds. Gideon faced this test in the hours between the reduction of the army and the beginning of the battle. The instructions had been given. The confirmation at the enemy camp had been received. The clay jars were in hand. The torches were hidden inside them. The 300 were assembled and positioned. And then there was a moment of waiting. A moment between the last instruction and the signal to move. A moment where the full weight of what was about to happen pressed down on every person in that company with a clarity that the busyness of preparation had been absorbing. They were about to do something that had no natural precedent for success. They were about to walk into a valley full of uncountable enemies with empty hands and breakable jars, and the kind of faith that cannot be explained to someone who does not carry it. And in that moment, the quality of the faith they brought into the corridor of the final mile determined everything that followed. You are in that moment right now. You have received the word. You have received the confirmation. You have heard the testimony of what God has done through chosen ones who went before you. You have been positioned at the threshold of June 12 and 13 with more clarity and more preparation and more spiritual momentum than you have carried into any previous season. And now the question that the final mile always asks is coming to the surface. Not the question of whether the calling is real, not the question of whether the promise was genuine, but the simpler, quieter, more personal question that the enemy whispers in the last mile when the noise of everything else has settled. Will you hold it all the way to the end? And the answer that rises from inside, a chosen one who has survived the winepress and the reduction and the long night and the forge of everything that the preparation season required, is not a shouted declaration. It is not a performance of confidence for the benefit of an audience. It is a quiet, settled, unshakable yes that does not need the validation of visible circumstances to maintain its ground. It is the yes of someone who has already counted the cost and paid it and found that the one who called them has been faithful in every moment that the cost was being paid. It is the yes of 300 people lifting their torches in the dark because the one who sent them was more trustworthy than the darkness was frightening. That is your yes in this final mile. Quiet, settled, unshakable, and completely sufficient for everything that is coming. Because here is what happens when a chosen one crosses the threshold with that quality of yes in their interior. The territory changes, not slowly and incrementally, in a way that requires careful analysis to detect. It changes in the way that the valley of Jezreel changed when 300 torches flooded it with light, suddenly, visibly, in a way that left no room for alternative interpretation. The darkness does not negotiate with that kind of light. The enemy does not have a counter strategy for that level of obedient, sustained, costly faithfulness finally arriving at the moment of its fulfillment. What happens when a chosen one who has been prepared through everything you have been prepared through steps into the fullness of the calling with a torch that survived every attempt to extinguish it is not a gradual improvement in circumstances. It is a shift, a genuine, atmospheric, visible shift that affects not just the chosen one at the center of it, but every person in their sphere who was waiting for the version of them that the calling produces. And the people in your sphere have been waiting. Some of them know it consciously. They have watched you through the seasons of preparation, and they have sensed that something was building, even when the evidence was not visible. They have felt the weight you were carrying without always having the language to name it. They have prayed for you in their own way, from their own understanding of who you are and what you carry, and some of them do not know it consciously at all. They simply feel in the quiet of their own interior that something is about to change in the landscape of their world, that a person they are connected to is on the edge of something that is going to alter the way they experience the territory of their own life. Chosen ones do not move alone. When the torch is lifted, the light touches everyone in the radius of the flame. Your breakthrough was never only personal. It was always also communal. And the community that has been waiting for your fullness is larger than you currently know. Because the torch you are carrying was never meant to illuminate only one life. It was meant to be a beacon, a reference point in the darkness that other chosen ones who are still finding their way through their own corridors can navigate by. When Gideon's 300 lifted their torches in the valley of Jezreel, it was not only the 300 who were affected by the light, it was the entire landscape. Everything in the radius of that fire was changed by it. The enemy camp was thrown into confusion. The oppressed people who had been watching from the margins were given a sight they had not allowed themselves to fully believe they would ever see. And the victory that followed became a story that was told for generations. A torch of its own kind that continued to light the way for chosen ones who came long after the original 300 had completed their assignment. Your torch carries that same quality. What you are about to step into is not only for your generation, it is a light that will be referenced by people you will never meet in seasons that have not yet arrived. Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 17. The Lord your God is in your midst, a mighty one who will save. He will rejoice over you with gladness. He will quiet you by his love. He will exult over you with loud singing. Let that verse land in the deepest place it can reach inside you right now. The God who ordered every step of your preparation is not waiting at the finish line observing your progress from a comfortable distance. He is in your midst, present, active, engaged with the specific detail of what you are carrying and what you are walking toward. And he is not observing you with the quiet assessment of a supervisor reviewing a report. He is rejoicing over you with gladness, with loud singing. God of the universe is producing a sound over your life right now that the enemy has no frequency to match. A sound of rejoicing that covers the noise of every accusation, every whispered doubt, every voice that has tried to convince you in the last mile of the preparation season that the torch was not worth hold this long. Heaven is louder than all of it, and heaven is singing over you. The torch that you have been carrying through the winepress and the reduction and the long night and the forge and the final mile of this preparation season is still standing. It did not go out. It did not diminish to a point of no return. It survived everything that was sent against it, and it is burning right now with the full intensity of a flame that has been tested and proven and refined by every season that tried to extinguish it. That torch is your testimony. That torch is your weapon. That torch is the evidence that the one who placed the calling in you has been faithful to maintain it through every moment of the cost that the carrying required. And right now, as a declaration that rises from the deepest place of that testimony, as a statement from the chosen one who held the torch through every season that tried to take it, I want you to type 3 words in the comments below. My torch stands. Not as a religious phrase to be typed and forgotten, as a declaration of everything this journey has been, as the testimony of a chosen one who arrived at the threshold of June 12 and 13, with the fire still burning. My torch stands. Let those words go into the comment section as your voice added to the 300. Let them be the sound of your jar breaking open and your torch being lifted in the darkness. My torch stands. Type it now, because it is true, because it has always been true, and because the enemy needs to hear from your own declaration that nothing it sent against you was enough to take down what heaven placed inside you. My torch stands. Say it, mean it, and carry it forward into everything that is coming. My torch stands. Those 3 words are not just a comment typed into a digital space. They are a declaration that has gone out into the atmosphere of your life and begun to do something that declarations from chosen one always do when they are spoken from the place of genuine, costly, tested faith. They create alignment. They bring into agreement the seen and the unseen. They close the gap between what has been promised in the realm of the spirit and what is about to materialize in the realm of the visible. When Gideon's 300 blew their trumpets and broke their jars and lifted their torches and shouted, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon," they were not performing a military tactic that any general in their natural mind would have designed. They were making a declaration that the territory they were standing in belonged to the one who had sent them. And the territory responded. The darkness that had seemed immovable began to move. The enemy that had seemed uncountable began to turn on itself in confusion. The victory that had seemed mathematically impossible began to manifest with a speed and a completeness that left no room for any explanation other than the hand of the one who had ordered every step of the journey that brought 300 chosen ones to that specific valley at that specific moment in history. Your declaration just did the same thing. In the realm that your natural eyes cannot see, something shifted when you typed those words. Something aligned. Something that had been held in the tension of the promise, and the preparation began to release in the direction of the fulfillment. And the days between now and June 12 and 13 are not empty waiting days. They are days of alignment, days where the declaration you have made is being confirmed in the unseen places by a God who takes the words of chosen ones seriously, who honors the faith that produced them, and who is already moving in the territory ahead of you to prepare the ground for what is coming. You are not waiting for something to begin. You are watching something that has already begun move toward the moment of its visible arrival. And here is what the chosen one needs to understand about the days of alignment. They do not always feel like alignment from the inside. They often feel like the last stretch of a long run, the part where the finish line is visible, but the body is carrying the full weight of every mile that came before it. The part where the temptation to slow down is strongest, precisely because the destination is closest. The enemy understands the mathematics of the last mile in a way that makes this stretch the most strategically important of the entire journey. Because a chosen one who slows down in the final approach to the threshold does not simply delay their arrival. They give the opposition time to regroup. They give the darkness time to reassemble in the territory that the declaration was already beginning to clear. The last mile is not the time to rest. It is the time to run with everything that the preparation season built in you, knowing that the finish line is real, that it is close, and that what is waiting on the other side of it was worth every step of the road that brought you here. Gideon did not slow down after the army was reduced. He did not pace himself through the confirmation at the enemy camp. He moved with the urgency of someone who understood that the appointed moment had arrived, and that appointed moments do not extend their window indefinitely to accommodate the pace of those who are not fully committed to arriving on time. He moved with 300 into the dark, into the valley, into the territory that looked impossible, and produced the victory that became a story told for generations. That is the quality of movement that the days between now and June 12 and 13 require from you. Not frantic movement, not anxious striving, but the purposeful, committed, forward motion of a chosen one who has received the word, paid the cost, made the declaration, and is now moving toward the threshold with everything that the preparation season produced in them fully engaged and fully operational. Because what is on the other side of June 12 and 13 is not a moment. It is a momentum. It is the beginning of a season of visible fruitfulness that is proportional to the depth of the preparation that preceded it. Everything that was built in the winepress, every layer of character and endurance and wisdom and faith that was forged in the seasons of silence and reduction and the long night before the battle, all of it becomes the infrastructure of what is about to be built in the visible season. The depth of the foundation determines the height of what can be built on top of it. And the foundation that your preparation season produced is deep enough to support something that will be visible, not just in your immediate circumstances, but in the broader territory of every person and every situation that your calling is meant to touch. The people who have been waiting for the version of you that walks in the fullness of this calling. The people whose lives are supposed to be changed by what you carry. They are not waiting in a distant future that has no connection to the present moment. They are in your world right now. Some of them are in your immediate circle, watching you navigate this final stretch of the preparation season and drawing their own quiet courage from the fact that you have not put down the torch. Some of them are further away, connected to you through threads that have not yet become visible, that will become visible when the season shifts and the torch is lifted and the light begins to travel in directions that the darkness of the preparation season was containing. You are not carrying the torch for yourself alone. You never were. The calling was always larger than the one who carries it. And the fullness of what it was designed to produce has always been aimed at a territory that goes far beyond the boundaries of your own life. Isaiah chapter 43, verse 19. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. A new thing, not a revised version of the old thing, not an improved iteration of what came before. A new thing, something that has no precedent in the seasons that came before it. Something that does not follow the logic of the patterns that have defined the preparation season. Something that springs up that the scripture says is already springing up right now, in the territory that looked like wilderness, in the places that looked like wasteland, in the areas of your life that the preparation season left looking depleted and dry, and without visible signs of the life that was being built underground. The new thing does not wait for the wilderness to look less like wilderness before it begins to grow. It springs up in the middle of it. It makes a way through it. It produces streams in the places that showed no evidence of water. And it does all of this not gradually, not incrementally, not in a way that requires patience to detect, but in a way that can be perceived, in a way that is visible, in a way that chosen ones who have been living in the wilderness of the preparation season will recognize immediately as the fingerprint of a God who makes new things in the most unlikely places at the most appointed moments. June 12 and 13 are that moment for you. They are the moment when the new thing that has been springing up underground in the preparation season begins to break through the surface of the visible in ways that you will perceive, and that you will perceive, and that the people around you will perceive, and that the enemy who spent the preparation season trying to prevent you from arriving at this threshold will have no answer for, because the new thing that God makes does not ask for the enemy's permission. It does not require the circumstances to cooperate. It does not wait for every obstacle to be removed before it begins to grow. It springs up in the wilderness, through the wasteland, regardless of what the landscape looked like the day before it arrived. And the chosen one who receives the new thing is not unchanged by it. This is something that must be understood as you stand in the final days of the preparation season. The version of you that steps into the visible season on June 12 and 13 will not be the same version that entered the corridor of the preparation. Not because the essential calling has changed, not because the fire that was placed in you has been replaced by something different. But because the fire has been through the forge, because the clay jar has been pressed from every direction, because the torch has been carried through every kind of darkness that the enemy could deploy against it. And what comes out of that process, what emerges from the winepress and the reduction and the long night and the final mile, is not a diminished version of what went in. It is a refined version, a proven version, a version that carries the weight of the testimony alongside the weight of the calling and is stronger for the combination. Gideon came out of the valley of Jezreel a different man than the one who went in, not different in his essential identity, not different in the calling that had been placed on him before the angel ever appeared under the oak tree, but different in the quality of his knowing, different in the depth of his faith, different in the evidence he now carried in his own interior of what happens when a chosen one moves forward in obedience with a torch and a clay jar and 300 companions into a darkness that had every natural reason to be impenetrable. He came out knowing in a way that he had not known before that the word of the one who sent him was more reliable than the calculations of the one who opposed him. And that knowing, that deep, experiential, testimony-backed knowing, is what you are going to carry out of this preparation season and into everything that follows. You are not the same person who entered the corridor. The corridor produced something in you that the comfort of an easier season never could have, and what was produced is exactly what the new thing requires to flourish. The wilderness needed the right roots before the streams could be sustainable. The wasteland needed the right depth of foundation before the new growth could hold its ground against the seasons that would come after the breakthrough. And your preparation produced those roots. It built that depth. It created the interior infrastructure that the visible season is going to need in order to sustain what heaven is releasing into it. You are ready in ways that go deeper than your feelings about your readiness. You are ready in ways that were built before you knew what you were being made ready for. The torch stands. The declaration has been made. The new thing is springing up, and June 12 and 13 are the moment when the surface of the visible breaks open, and what has been growing underground finally steps into the light that it was always designed to inhabit. The torch stands. The declaration has gone out. The new thing is already springing up in the territory that the preparation season left looking like wilderness. And now this message arrives at its final movement. Not its conclusion in the sense of something ending, but its completion in the sense of a symphony, reaching the movement that everything before it was building toward. Every word spoken since the ancient image of a young man standing before a kingdom he had not yet learned to carry. Every layer of truth pressed into the soil of your spirit, through the story of Gideon in the winepress, through the reduction of the army, through the long night before the battle, through the forge of the preparation season, through the declaration of the torch that would not go out. All of it has been moving toward this moment. The moment where the word does not simply inform the mind or stir the emotions, but settles into the deepest interior place of a chosen one and becomes the foundation of everything that follows June 12 and 13. Because chosen ones do not simply receive words, they become them, they carry them. They walk them out in the visible, daily, practical reality of lives that are being shaped by something larger than what the natural eye can see. And the word that has been spoken over you in this message is not meant to be consumed and forgotten like content that fills a moment and leaves no lasting trace. It is meant to be planted, meant to take root in the specific soil of your specific story and produce fruit that is proportional to the depth of the ground it was planted in. And the ground of your preparation season is deep, deeper than you know, deeper than anyone watching from the outside has been able to measure, deeper than even you have been able to fully assess from inside the experience of walking through it. What was built in the corridor is the infrastructure of a harvest that chosen ones do not produce in easy seasons. They produce it in the seasons that required everything, and you gave everything. Every day that you showed up when showing up was the hardest thing available to you. A prayer that felt like it went nowhere but went somewhere, that changed the landscape of what was coming. Every moment of faithfulness in the unseen place that no audience could observe and no applause could reward. And seed does not disappear. It becomes something. The something that your seed is becoming is arriving on June 12 and 13, not as a reward for good behavior, not as the result of a formula that produces guaranteed outcomes for everyone who follows the steps correctly, but as the fulfillment of a covenant that was made over your life before you had the capacity to understand what a covenant meant. A covenant between the one who placed the calling in you and the one who has been carrying it through every season that tried to convince you it was not real. That covenant has never been broken, not by your failures, not by your seasons of doubt, not by the moments when the faith flickered and the fear was louder and the torch felt too heavy to keep holding. The covenant held through all of it, because the one who made it does not break what he establishes, and what he established over your life is unbreakable. And now, before this message releases you into the days that lead to June 12 and 13, there is something that must happen. Something that is not optional for a chosen one who has received a word of this weight and this specificity. Something that is not a religious formality or a ritual performed for the benefit of an audience. It is the most natural response available to a person who has just encountered the presence of a God who sees them, who knows them, who has been with them in every moment of the preparation season, who has been singing over them in the winepress, who ordered every step they took, even when the steps felt random and directionless and insufficient. The most natural response to that kind of love is not a typed comment or a subscription or a shared video. The most natural response is prayer. And so before anything else is said, before the final words of this message are released, let us go there together. Father, the person receiving these words right now has been through something that only you have seen in its entirety. You were there in the winepress. You were there in the reduction. You were there in the long night when the torch was almost too heavy to hold. You were there in every moment of the preparation season that tried to convince them that the calling was not real, that the promise was not coming, that the fire was going out. And you held the flame. You maintained the covenant. You ordered the steps even when they could not feel the order. And now they are here, at the threshold, with the torch still standing, with the declaration still ringing in the atmosphere of their life. And we are asking you to do what only you can do. Meet them on June 12 and 13, with the fullness of everything that was written over them before the foundation of the world was laid. Let the new thing spring up in a way that they can perceive. Let the streams appear in the wasteland. Let the harvest be proportional to the depth of the preparation. Let the victory be undeniable enough that no one who witnesses it can offer any explanation other than the faithfulness of a God who never abandons his chosen ones in the corridor. Cover them now with the sound of your rejoicing. Quiet the voice of the enemy with the sound of your love. And carry them across the threshold of what is coming with the same grace that carried them through everything that brought them here. In the name that is above every name, the name that darkness has no answer for, the name that was spoken over your life before you had the capacity to speak it yourself. Amen. That prayer was not spoken into the air. It was spoken into the specific atmosphere of your specific life and the specific season you are navigating. And prayers spoken by chosen ones in alignment with the covenant of heaven do not return empty. They go out and they accomplish what they were sent to accomplish in the timeline of a God whose definition of timing is always more precise than our experience of waiting allows us to appreciate. The amen you spoke, silently or out loud, was a word of agreement. An agreement between a chosen one and the covenant of heaven is one of the most powerful forces that operates in the seen and unseen dimensions of reality. You have received something in this message that was worth protecting. Not with religious performance, not with the anxiety of someone trying to make sure they do not lose what they were just given, but with the intentional, daily chosen commitment to keep the torch burning in the days between now and the threshold. To keep moving forward in the strength you have. To keep making the declaration that the enemy has no counter strategy for. My torch stands. In the morning when the day arrives, with its full weight of demands and distractions. In the afternoon when the momentum of the morning has settled and the quieter voices have more room to be heard. In the evening when the day is completed and the accounting of what was accomplished and what was not presses against the faith that the preparation season built. My torch stands in every moment of every day between now and June 12 and 13. That is the commitment of a chosen one who received this word and chose to become it, rather than simply consume it. The community of chosen ones that has gathered in this space is one of the most extraordinary things that heaven has assembled in this hour. People from different backgrounds, different geographies, different seasons of their journey, united by the single reality of a calling that will not go quiet and a fire that will not go out. That community is worth investing in, not just through your presence, but through your active participation in its growth. If this message added something real to your life today, something that met you in a specific place and gave you language or confirmation or courage that you needed for the season you are in, share it with someone who is still in their wine press. Someone who needs to hear that the angel is already sitting under their oak tree. Someone who needs to know that the reduction of their army was not abandonment, but divine mathematics. Someone who needs the testimony of the torch that survived everything the preparation season sent against it. Like this video is an act of partnership with the word that it carried. Subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell so that the next word that heaven releases through this space finds you the moment it arrives, rather than days later when the momentum of the initial release has moved on. And if you feel the pull of generosity in this moment, if something in you wants to invest in the continuation of a ministry that was built to find chosen ones in their wine presses and call them Mighty Warrior, the donate link is in the description below and in the pinned comment. Whatever you give in this season of your own preparation, give it with the faith of a chosen one who understands that what is released from a generous hand in a season of personal pressure is the most powerful kind of seed there is. And seed sown by chosen ones in faith does not simply disappear. It becomes the harvest that the next season is built upon. You are not leaving this message the same person who arrived at it. Something has shifted. Something has been confirmed. Something has been planted in ground that the preparation season made ready for exactly this kind of seed. And what grows from it in the days and weeks and months that follow June 12 and 13 will be the testimony that carries other chosen ones through their own corridors. The light you carry does not stop at the edges of your own life. It travels, it touches territory you cannot currently see. It becomes a reference point for people who are still finding their way in the dark. Your torch stands. It has always stood, and what is coming will make that undeniable to every person in the radius of the flame that heaven placed in you before you ever took your first breath in this world. Go forward. The threshold is real. The covenant is unbroken, and you were chosen for exactly this. Beloved, if you made it to these final words, know that you were not held here by an algorithm. You were held here by love, by the same love that sat under the oak tree and waited for Gideon, by the same love that ordered every step of your preparation season, by the same love that has been singing over you in the winepress when the world around you was too loud to hear the sound. That love is not diminishing as this message ends. It is going with you into the morning, into the next decision, into the threshold of June 12 and 13, into every season that follows the breakthrough that is already springing up in the wilderness of your life. You are seen, you are known, you are chosen, and the torch you are carrying was lit by a hand that never loses its grip on the flame it places inside a life it has called for its purposes. Go in the strength you have. The Lord is with you, mighty one.